story, of course, the last few days has been the horrible news out of Ukraine.
Look, it has been, and we can't really talk about anything else, but because that's pretty much what all the media has been talking about. The newspapers, the radio, the television, online media has just been saturating this with it, and it's probably one of the saddest stories we're going to hear for a long time. Most Australians ever been that have ever died in a flight anywhere. This is just amazing. The way that this is all playing out as well. I mean, this all has sort of kicked off late Thursday, the very early hours of Friday morning. And it was just starting to pick up, and people were getting word of it, and the information was just coming in and creeping in. But the information was coming in thick and fast as the hours progressed, because there was a lot to be asked, a lot of questions being asked, and people were confused and wanted to know more. All we've been talking about has been this. There'll be a lot of listeners out there that'll be very wary of it. They'll be very tired. It's tough as well. I think we almost need to sit down with a psychologist or a psychiatrist as well, just to sit down and go through all of this, because it is really hard to take in, particularly if you're a young person or even an older person. It doesn't matter. It's just really, really heart-wrenching for the families that are involved, but also, too, the fact that it can happen to anyone. It's just uncertain. We just don't know what's going to happen. And there's a lot going on over in the Ukraine, and there's a lot going on, and we'll be seeing this going on for a good number of weeks.
There are so many questions still to be answered, and I am... you don't want to discuss it in too much detail because of the loss of life and children, the innocents involved. But you just wonder, should the plane have been flying over that war zone? No, planes aren't flying over it now.
Simple answer, no. In fact, it was very, very early that the Malaysian Airlines was already under fire for the fact that they were flying over a war zone, maybe, and just to save petrol. That's just ridiculous. I mean, if you looked at the flight paths of every other airline that's going around, they avoided the area. Of course they avoided it. It's a war zone. Don't go near it, and basically put those lives at risk. Yes, that's there. But then, look, Andrew, let's get these bodies back. Let's get the families back. Let's get the questions answered. And I think that the whole issue, and this is where we've seen some very strong leadership from our Prime Minister. You know, Andrew, we've been very critical, well, myself personally, been very critical of our Prime Minister up to date. I have, we've walked and talked a lot about his faux pas and a lot of the things that have gone on, and have we really seen any leadership from this Prime Minister? Well, I think he is doing an amazing job. He has got up and said the things that many other world leaders haven't been able to say or prepared to say, because he wants to know where the 37, 38 lives, Australian lives that have been lost in this flight, and where they are, when are they coming home, and stop passing the buck, as he referred. Now, there's a lot of words that Tony Abbott has said in his time as both in opposition and also too as the Prime Minister that'll come back to bite him. But these are the kind of words that he's been using of late that really get the Australian people. They actually see this and go, you know what, that's our leader. Thank you for being our leader, and thank you for standing up for Australia. And that was, he's getting a lot of applause around the country and also too around the world. If you compare him to Barack Obama, which I think there's an issue there, Barack's trying to play the political game a little bit closer to his chest because there's a lot more going on. But the fact is, only one American and dual American lost his life there. Maybe not such a big issue for the United States. But for Australia, for Holland, for Malaysia, these countries have lost a lot of citizens, and we have to continue to put pressure on the Russian government to get these separatists to go away and let our investigators in, get our people out of there and get them home.
Well, a comment was made on this very station yesterday morning. It was an interesting one. You know, the images we were receiving, some of the first television images, were of groups of passports being held before the camera, obviously taken from the field there where the plane had crashed. You just wonder, how is this operation, this clean-up operation going on? The passports would come from all different sources, from backpacks and luggage, so they've been collected by these totally non-scientific investigators and just held before a camera. I mean, it just makes you worry about whatever is going to be found out and what truths really will emerge from this.
Look, this is an act of terrorism, an act of war, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. That site is completely and utterly contaminated. We've had the reports in the media that it's been looted, that people have gone in, stolen electronic equipment, bags have been tampered with. There's nothing in there that really they're going to find out other than the fact that it has been shot down, and we know who's responsible for it. Even if there is some suggestion that it could have been someone else, we know who it is. We need answers. We want justice here. But look, it's just a case of getting the bodies back, and that's the most important thing. I guess the whole way that it's played out over the last 4 days has been one where media itself has been the winner, has been the real white knight for one side of it, and also it also is a cause for a lot of other things there. 20 minutes after the flight was shot down, Israel then invaded and went into the Gaza Strip. Now, they saw that was an opportunity there. Whether it was timing or coincidental, don't know. But the world's media focus was on flight MH17, and all of a sudden, you've got somewhere else across, not too far away from that other part of the world, where they've gone and used that opportunity to go in. Media itself is a great oxygen there for terrorism, if you like, and it also too can bring about the best and worst in people. And we've seen it, definitely. We've seen some of the best in Tony Abbott come from real strong leadership to go away and represent his country. And we've also seen the worst, where you've seen looters and people coming through and stealing from a site that is really the burial ground for 298 people.
Aren't we lucky, as you pointed out here in your points to me, just shows you how lucky we are to live where we are, and let's hope it remains like this in Australia, because peace is such a fragile thing in so much of the world still.
It is such a fragile, and we're so lucky here in Australia. And look, we haven't been completely innocent of it all. There's a Victorian insurance company, I won't name them, Andrew, but they were looking to make some money out of this. They used and bought Google AdWords for Malaysia Airlines, and what they were trying to do was sell life insurance. They used a tagline like is the Malaysian Airline disaster a sign to buy life insurance? And this appears, when you put Malaysia Airline in your Google search, this would appear as your very top search. It would come up as an ad, but this is a Victorian insurance company doing this. They very quickly took it down. They apologised. But you know what? That's just what brings out the worst. This is kind of the disasters that brings out the worst in people too.
And social media, and that it really gives it a bad taste, because that sort of ad would have been more considered, I would imagine, and before in the days when there was just print. It would have to go through several different processes, if you know what I mean, Nick. Now
absolutely.
It's just straight from the brain onto the page,
Yeah, I mean, and the responsibility of the media outlet that did that would say, look, no, I don't care how much they're paying for that. I'm not interested in that. But look, that's the kind of thing that was brought out. The Queensland Premier, very, very lucky. His daughter was just missed that flight by a day. I mean,
wow.
That's the kind of thing that the stories that you see the Premier of Queensland quite emotional, and probably not everyone was fully understanding why he was so emotional, short of the fact that I think 9 Queenslanders lost their lives, but it was very quickly found out that his daughter was meant to be on that flight or came in a day earlier.
Good heavens.
Really, they're the kind of things that, you just thank your lucky stars. But to all the families out there that know or have been affected, our hearts go out to you, because we're standing by you, and I think our Prime Minister really understands that he's really getting behind, and he wants answers. And I don't think he's going to let this one go, because President Putin, the Russian president, is due to be over in Brisbane for the G20 coming in later this year, and that's going to be a very interesting time if this has not been resolved or there haven't been answers delivered.
I think even if it is somehow resolved and there is compensation made and he steps in, Putin, and takes over the forensics of this horror, I have a feeling he'll still get a very warm, or in some ways very cool reception in this country when he arrives.
I think it'll be very, very cool indeed. But look, this is going to continue, Andrew. We're not really going to see the end of this for some time. I think we've just found our #1 issue of the year. There's no doubt about
Could
it,
well be.
particularly on the international scene.
Interesting comment was made by Andrew Bolt, the columnist in the Herald Sun, and all for News Limited and other papers around this country, that Australia, in a sense, he wasn't really making excuses or trying to deflate or in any way kind of put down Tony Abbott, but he was saying that Australia doesn't have the kind of links to Russia that some of the European nations that seem to have gone a bit softer on Putin have, that we don't supply, because as he points out, Russia doesn't supply half our gas or our electricity, as Germany is dependent on Russia, as the Netherlands are, as other European countries are. And that, of course, makes us a little more independent, a little bit freer of tongue, shall we say.
Oh, look, and there's no denying that. And also, too, good old little Australia, what have they got to say? Well, I'll tell you what they have got to say. They've lost 38 lives, and Tony Abbott's getting up to say a few things, and he can say it quite freely. In fact, his words that he used, I think they were put together beautifully by someone that was getting out there to reach the heart and soul of Australia. He can say those things. We're not dependent on Russian gas. We're not dependent on Russian trade, for which a lot of the European countries are, and they're not going to be too willing to upset. We've also got the biggest problem is that because only one US citizen, and a dual citizen at that, was killed, is that the strength and power of the United States is not going to be coming down hard and fast. But there is a very big political game that is being played right now between Barack Obama and President Putin in the word of the politics. The politics, every word is a bullet, and they're shooting at each other in a very, very controlled way. They don't want to put President Putin into a complete corner that he can't get out of, because he does have access to the second or third biggest arsenal of nuclear weapons if he has to go away and use them. But give him a chance through diplomacy to do the right thing. And that's what the world is hoping for. And that's possibly why Barack Obama has come across pretty weak with reference to this. I don't think he necessarily wants to be the guy that is just letting him get away with it. But he also knows that if he puts a wounded dog in the corner, he's going to come out biting,
could well be.
We don't know what's going to come from that.
This is what troubled me slightly. Is I applaud, like you, Tony Abbott and Bill Shorten backing him up, the strong stand taken by Australia regarding this tragedy. But I just wonder, in the end, Australia be damned as far as Russia's concerned. They don't really need us at all. As far as I know, we're not linked to them really in any significant way.
We're not linked to them, but on the international platform, in the eyes of the world, you would hope that he does the right thing, and that even the words of the Malaysian government, the Netherlands, every country that has been affected by this needs to go away and put pressure on him to make them do the right thing. And look, we're not going to get these lives back, and it might come that it was just one big fatal error, fatal mistake, and one that the Russians won't be the only ones guilty of in recent history. But we need to get answers. We need to get the bodies back, and just for the sake of the family, so they can put it behind them. I mean, MH370, 370, we'll never be able to find the bodies or get the return there. And for those families, they'll go through that for the rest of their lives. This is a chance they can put it to rest, and just for the sake of those that have been affected.
Nick Hayes, thank you very much.
Andrew, we'll be talking about something hopefully far more positive next week.
Indeed. Nick Hayes, overnight on 3AW.
For a limited time, Mercedes-Benz Berwick is offering an exceptionally low finance rate.